It doesn't look like we've got any externals with us live, but that's okay. I'm sure they will watch later. It's nice to have so many of you back in class after break. I hope you've had a nice break. Is everyone aware that grades were released earlier this week? In case you weren't, you can have a look at your grade now. Okay. If you have questions about any of the marking, then please contact Shailene. She's my marker for this topic.
Oh, I thought you said Shailene.
Yeah.
I was like, yes.
Yep. If you have questions, that's fine. She'll answer your questions. You just need to email her and ask for an appointment. So has everyone got their grades? Because you won't be able to concentrate, I know, without seeing them. We're all good to move on? Okay, let's go. So, we're in the second half of this topic. Obviously, we have covered the first half. You've got your assignment, you've got that back. Hi. The first half of the assignment, sorry ladies, can I just ask, thank you. The first half of the assignment, it was more general information. It was really information that everybody needs to know. So whether you're planning to work in disability employment or not, it's still useful information. Even if you're planning to work in a school, still really good information to know, because people have to make choices. They eventually leave school and they want to go into employment. So knowing the 4 different types of employment, knowing the different services that are out there, all that is very important and helpful information for yourself to hand on to others. Now we're going to go into the next half of the topic. So from week 7 to 12, we've got a new assignment. I'm going to show you that in a minute, but it's already up there on Flow for you. And we're going to look a little more in detail about if you were going to work in disability employment. These are the skills that you would actually need to have, all right? So let's have a look. So today's lecture, these are the things we're going to cover. So we're covering a lot of information, okay? We'll go through them one by one. They're not that complex, it's all right. But here's your second assignment, and the bit that I have in yellow, highlighted in yellow, is the information. How I want you to answer that bit in yellow is the information that I'm going to give you today, all right? And then then the following 4 weeks, we're going to be looking at customised employment, because there are 4 different stages of customised employment. We're going to be looking at them. And then finally, we're going to be looking at IPS, all right? So again, listen up, take notes, and you should be able to get your assignment finished. Now, here in this assignment, I've asked you to pretend that you're a manager of ACE Employment Services, which is an open employment service, or a DES. Your job is to advise staff, job consultants, on the best way to support people with disabilities in finding and maintaining a job. Outline the important processes you want staff to be aware of to assist their clients. And I've really given you the answer, okay? Because the headings are pre-employment, customised employment, and IPS. That's really the answer. Now I need you to fill in the rest of the information. So today we're going to be looking at pre-employment. Clearly, pre-employment skills are very useful for anybody to have, and we're going to be looking at those. So do note here that I have got 2 points. What skills and experiences would be useful for a job seeker with a disability, and what pre-employment knowledge would be useful for a job consultant to help somebody with a disability find a job. I'm going to give you the answers to both of those today, not in any particular order. I've mixed them up, so you're going to have to pay attention, but I'll talk you through it anyway. Okay, any questions so far? No? Good to go. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be looking at is work-ready skills. They're called all sorts of different things: pre-employment skills, work readiness, workability, career readiness, employability skills, soft skills, hard skills. There's all sorts of terms, but they mean the same thing, okay? It's just about that work, getting ready for work. There are skills that we need before we start work, okay? Work-ready skills are important as they could contribute to reducing unemployment and addressing the social and financial barriers to employment. So we need to spend some time concentrating on these work-ready skills. And lots of people do, so it's a good idea to be addressing them in the school. That's a really good idea for anybody who's going to be working in a school setting. Any teachers that might be listening, think about addressing these in year, I would suggest starting in year 9, 10, 11, 12, you can start addressing these work-ready skills. So what are work-ready skills? So we can put them into two main categories, and the two categories are workplace competencies and foundational competencies. So workplace competencies are about the types of things that you will do at work, all right? So if you are a waitress, then obviously taking money or writing down orders or carrying more than one plate at a time, that would be what you would need, that would be considered a workplace competency because that's what you need to do for your job. As a lecturer, I don't have to do any of that, all right? But my workplace competencies are using PowerPoint, reading and writing, researching, they're the sort of things. Foundational competencies are more things that all of us need to come to work. So I need to come to work, we all need to come to work neat and tidy. We need to be able to get our own food and toilet ourselves. We need to be able to catch public transport. We need to be able to speak respectfully to other people in the workplace. We need to come to work on time. They are more the foundational competencies, okay? So it's really two groups. So let's go back and have a little closer look at work-ready skills. And these are more the skills that probably everybody needs rather than the workplace competencies. These are more of the foundational ones. So they're also sometimes called soft skills. So things like communication, yeah, everybody needs that. We need to be able to communicate. Enthusiasm and a positive attitude, we all need that. Working in a team and networking, we all need that. Problem solving and critical thinking, professionalism, they're all things that we call soft skills or work-ready skills, and we all need them, including people with disabilities. And as you can see, we can start working on all of them, all of those skills, while they're at school. They don't have to get a job first. In fact, it's way better if they've got those skills before they get a job. So some of the other things that we can work on with people is interview practice and writing a resume or job searching skills. How do they search for a job? How do they get on Seek? How do they get online, use the computer? How do they upload a resume? How do they write a resume? All that kind of stuff we can be working on as well. And then employers valued positive attitudes, dependability, staying on task, getting along with other colleagues. Again, these are some of these soft skills that we're talking about. So we can start working with people on these. Some of the other skills are independence, so traveling or toileting themselves. We can work on those skills. You don't normally think of those as work skills, but they are work skills, yeah? If your employer has to take you to the toilet, probably not enjoyable for them nor you, okay? So we can be working on these sorts of things before they even get a job. Social skills, attitudes, literacy and numeracy, and that might just mean basic literacy and numeracy. It doesn't have to be, you know, university level, but they're things that we can work on for people with people with disabilities. Work experience, really, really important part of getting work ready, okay? I think most of us have had a job. Who's had a job before you left high school? Yeah, yeah, all of us, yeah. And did you learn a lot of things from having that job? It's probably wasn't in the disability field, not necessarily your long-term career, but you still went there, you still earned money, and you still would have learned some skills, do you think? What kind of skills did you learn from your first job when you were in high school? What sort of things did you learn?
How to handle conflict.
Yes, great. How to handle conflict. What else?
Working in a team.
Working in a team, yep, absolutely. Yep. Were there some workplace skills that you learnt as well? My first job was a chicken shop. And so I learned all those skills around coming to work on time, knocking off on time, but I also learned how to make chips and fish and chickens and roast chickens and all the rest of it. Yep. Anybody else? What other skills did you guys learn in your first job in high school? Yes.
Social interaction.
Yeah, social interaction. Yeah, absolutely. So that social interactions is really learnt. It can be a little bit difficult to teach. I mean, we can teach it and we do teach it, but it really is learnt by interacting with other people, and they can do that in work experience or a job before their forever job. Okay, so I would encourage you to encourage people with disabilities to get jobs early on so that they can learn some of these skills just by being in the workplace. All right, so now what I want you to do is I want you, after every section today, I'm going to get you to write some notes about the section, because obviously these are the sorts of skills that people with disabilities need. So if I go back to the question here, what skills and experiences would be useful for a job seeker with disability? All right, the first one is pre-employment skills. So I want you to list some for me in your notes so that you can start answering that question, and then once you've written it down, I want you to share it with the person next to you, okay? So what are some of the skills and experiences that they need in terms of being work ready? I gave them to you. Shouldn't be that hard. Write it down and then discuss it with the person next to you. What are the ones that you wrote down? Everyone's quiet today. All right, has everyone taken notes, written down something? Excellent, thanks Yvonne. Chat to the person next to you. What did you write down? They might be a little bit different. You might have concentrated on different things. It's okay to do that. Thanks, Alyssa. All right, wonderful. And Yvonne online actually said time management, which is a really good one, which I didn't have listed up there. So there are other skills that I didn't list, so you can include those in your assignment. If you think you've got some other ones, that's absolutely fine. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at SLES. We've already discussed SLES. I know we have in another lecture, in an earlier lecture. But I wanted to go over this again because it answers that question of what information does a job consultant need If you're working in the disability field, you need to know about SLES money, all right? So I'll just quickly go over it again. I know I've already mentioned it, but let's quickly look at it again. So SLES money is school leaver employment supports. It is undergoing a change at the moment as I speak. So I think it's going to change slightly, but as it stands now, it's $21,000 over 2 years, and it's supposed to support people transitioning from school to work. That's what it's supposed to do, okay? Now, you can already have left school and still get SLES money. So if you're working with somebody who is having difficulty trying to find a job, you might like to access SLES funds from the NDIS, okay, for them. So yeah, important knowledge for you to have. So supports, SLES money can be used for work experience, skills training, travel training, and it really, the money is supposed to equate to about 3 days a week of support, okay? And it runs for 2 years, so it's quite generous. So really it's quite a good transition. You know, you could use that money wisely for transition. You can use it while they're at school, you can use it once they've left school, or you can use it while they're working, while they're partly at school and partly at work. It's okay, you can use it in any form, all right? Really good information to know. There's just some more information around NDIS and SLES. So yeah, any questions around SLES? No? Have people heard of it before? No?
Yeah. Sorry, is there an age limit of who can access it?
I don't think there is an age limit, not to my knowledge, but it might be. It is undergoing some changes at the moment. Yeah, it's more about if you haven't had a job, if you haven't got a job, so yeah. But somebody might be able to correct me on that. Think that's useful for somebody? Yeah, really useful. So as a job consultant, you need to know this information, you need to stay up to date with it, all right? If you've got a parent who comes to you and says, my child's in year 12, I don't know what's going to happen to them, I don't know how to plan for their transition, point them in this direction, all right? So there are lots of organisations that do transition, will transition somebody with a disability and they will take the SLES money, or you can use the SLES money individually, all right, and give it to certain people to help support. So you can, it's one of the few supports that is it has a wide use, so it's very useful. All right, okay, so obviously I'd like you to discuss SLES in your assignment because it's something that you need to know. Here's something else that a job consultant might need to know. This is the kind of stuff that you would need to tell your staff. If you're a manager of ACE employment, as I've said in the assignment, you would need your staff to know about SLES, you would need them to know about work subsidies. And again, I've already mentioned these, I know I have in earlier lectures, but we're going to look at them again because it's information that people need. Okay, so a wage subsidy is paid to the employer for employing somebody with a disability. And you might remember me talking about this because I said, oops, because I said a lot of job consultants who work in disability employment actually don't talk about this wage subsidy. Can you remember why I said some people won't mention this to employers?
Because lots of employers will let the person go after 13 weeks.
Excellent, good remembering. Yeah, that's exactly right. So sometimes employers will just be after this money and then they'll let the person go once the money runs out. So some job consultants do mention it, some don't. That would be a very personal decision around whether you did or you didn't. Look, I think it's useful for employers to encourage them to take somebody on with a disability, and then it gives the person with a disability an opportunity to show themselves and to show, hey, I'm somebody that's a good worker and you'd like to keep me. So from that point of view, really useful, but then you do get the odd employer that is just after the money, and of course that's not good. Once the money runs out, the person with disability loses their job, they're devastated, they actually haven't done anything wrong, just the government money's run out. So you kind of got to, I think what you've got to do is you kind of got to figure out what the employer is like. Are they going to be dishonest in taking this money, or are they honestly interested in giving somebody with a disability a job? But it's still something that your staff, if you're a manager, you would want them to know about it, and you might give them instructions on whether they offer this to an employer or not. Also, the other thing that we've talked about is this SWS, the Supported Wage Scheme, which is whereby if somebody with a disability is working, then an outside person comes in and times them and checks on their productivity, and if they are working at 70% productivity of what we call an able-bodied person, then they get 70% of the wage. Or if they're working at 80%, then they get 80% of the wage, 90%, they get 90% of the wage, all right? So this is another scheme that you would want your staff to know about if they were working in disability employment, because sometimes you will go to employers and you will say, look, I've got somebody with a disability, and the employer will go, yeah, but they're not going to work as fast as my other workers. And you could explain to them, well, we've got the SWS. If they don't work as fast, then they won't get paid as much. The SWS can be reviewed at any time. So that does mean that if the person does start working, they initially might not start working at that 100% of everybody else, but they might after a few months or after a year, it can be reviewed and then they can get 100% of the wage, okay? Any questions around the SWS? I know we've had a discussion about it before. Again, something that you need to know to try and get somebody with a disability into a job. Okay, yeah. Now, what I want you to do is, yes, you can take some notes about that information that we've just gone through, but turn to the person next to you. Oh, just jumping on. Would you discuss SWS and wage subsidies with an employer? If you were a job consultant and you've got somebody with a disability, you want to get them a job, you're chatting to the employer's a little bit cool on the idea, but you think you might be able to swing them, would you discuss SWS and wage subsidies? Just have a chat amongst yourselves. Or would you only discuss one, not the other one? Would you not discuss either of them, or would you discuss both of them? What's your personal opinion? There's no right or wrong in this. I know people, perfectly good people that work in the field that have very different opinions on this. So what do you think? Would you try and convince the employer to take somebody on with a disability by mentioning those two, or not? Have a chat. I'll see what the externals say. Everyone? Yes or no? Hands up those who would mention SWS. Who would mention SWS? Hands up. Just a couple of you there. Who would mention wage subsidies? Anyone mention wage subsidies to the employer? Yeah? Wondering, yeah? Maybe depends on the employer. read the conversation. Yeah, that's what I tend to do. I tend to read the conversation with the employer, and if I get the feel that they're just after the money, then I wouldn't mention it. Yeah. Okay, so nobody else would mention SWS or wage subsidies? No. So you'd rather have the person unemployed?
Well, I don't think that's true, but it would happen always.
Okay.
We were discussing that if an employer is just going to take them for the money, they're
Yes.
not going to be a good employer.
Totally agree with you. Yep. What about the SWS though? Is that fair enough? Because as an employer, do you want to pay somebody?
We didn't really discuss SWS. We only,
Okay, just the wage subsidy. Yeah. Okay, all right.
I don't think I'd mention either, because if
Yep.
the employer is not going to be willing to take on an employee with a disability,
Mhm.
then, like, if they suddenly go, oh yeah, after they hear about the money,
Mhm.
then they're most likely not willing to adapt to the workplace. They're not going to be accepting. They're not going to treat the person with a disability as an employee. They're going to treat them as a source of money.
Yeah.
So I don't think I would
Yep.
mention either, because
Okay.
I wouldn't want my client going into a job and I know that they're going to be let go soon.
Yep.
Or I know that they're only being
Yep.
employed because of the money.
Yep.
Like, I'd rather find them a better, more accepting employer who's going to
Sure, absolutely. Yep. Take your point. Good thinking. I'm glad you've thought through it. Do realise that it's two different schemes though. So the wage subsidy, the money does go to the employer. For SWS, it just means that the employer doesn't have to pay them $25 an hour or whatever they're paying, okay? So, and it's only if the person doesn't work at the 100% productivity. If they work at 100% productivity, they have to be paid the full award wage. So it is two slightly different schemes. Do keep in mind too, the other point I want to make is that some employers that I've worked with have been a little bit reluctant to take on somebody with a disability. But once I mention these schemes, they do take them on, and the person stays working there for a long time, all right? It's not every employer that is out to just grab money. I don't want you to think that for a second, okay? There are unscrupulous employers, but for the most part, most of them are good. And if this allows that door to open and they'll take on somebody with a disability, the person with a disability shows that they're a good worker, it's a great culture, there's a nice culture there, then I'm okay with offering these supports. But up to you what you think. Oh, excellent, the externals have had something to do. Okay, so somebody says they would mention both. Yep, and somebody else says it depends on my read of the employer. Yeah, absolutely. All right, excellent. Thank you everyone for your comments. Like I said, no right or wrong there. So it's entirely up to what you think. Services. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about services that are there to help people get to transition from school to work or to get into work and learn those skills. So NDCO, I'm not going to talk about these places in any great detail. I want you to check them out for yourself. But NDCO is one that has a whole lot of amazing resources for people looking for work and transitioning from school to work. Ticket to Work is another organisation. Again, you can just check them out. And again, they support people learning work-ready skills. They don't get people jobs. That's not their job. This is about getting people ready to get a job. All right. This group that I'm giving you. Inclusion Australia does as well. They have a system. All right. And there's a few others. Oh, there's one that's the transition centres here in Adelaide have just closed. But they do have one, I think they've opened one up down south at Noarlunga Centre. I don't know if they're called transition centres anymore. There used to be one at Door Park and one at Prospect, and I think they've closed both of them and opened one up at Noarlunga, so that's another one for you to look at. Barkuma runs a transition service as well that teaches work-ready skills. There's quite a few, so you can look those up for yourself. So what I want you to do now is I want you to do a Google search of either one of those three that I've just mentioned, or just try and find a transition service that's offered here in Adelaide. It might not be one of those, it might be another one. See what you can Google and find, all right? And you could include that in your assignment as well. Has anyone found something else, or have you looked up what I gave you? Doesn't matter either way.
The Ford website has a few.
Great.
resources.
Yes, fantastic. Anyone else?
Yeah, Novita has this what called transition to work.
Yes, Novita's just gone into the workspace. It's interesting. I've just started doing customised employment too. Yeah. Any others? Thank you. Let's see if that's going to take me back in. Oh, it is. Okay. Okay. Any others? So do you know what so looking for those transition services, you're quite welcome to mention those. If so, you need to look at them in a little more detail, or you can find other ones. I do not mind. All right, now let's look at a visual resume. Okay, so you know what a resume is, a CV. CV, resume, same thing, different word. Everyone's familiar with one. Have you written one for yourself? Have people written ones for themselves? Okay, great. So when we're working with people with higher support needs in particular, giving a resume with just words on it is maybe not the best way to showcase their abilities, all right? So we do have to address the elephant in the room in the fact that some employers, if you say, I've got somebody with an intellectual disability who'd like to work with you, they're going to have an attitude or a preconceived idea around what that person can or can't do. Would that be fair to say? Some employers would be like that. So the way around that is to actually do a visual resume, and I'm going to show you a real visual resume. This is somebody's, this is Mandy, and this is her visual resume. Now you can see here, this is a normal resume, just words. Yours would look something like that, mine looks something like that. But we're going to look at Mandy's. Mandy has an intellectual disability, and this is what hers looks like. So we've actually got pictures of her doing things and then an explanation, because pictures speak louder than words, all right? And if the employer is actually seeing them having these skills, then they're more likely to take them on. If we've just got them written down, it doesn't have as much impact, all right? So you can see here, Mandy has her own little business, and she sells these little tea towel kind of things, but she's also looking for some extra work. But we've got a picture of her selling those so that an employer, this is exactly what we would show the employer, all right? And then we're also going to show that she sells these pot holders at farmers markets, and then we're going to list the things that she does. So she checks inventory, she communicates with managers, and she sells the pot holders at the farmers market, and you've got a picture of her doing it, all right? So it convinces the employer that she has some skills. Yep. Here we go. This is one of her part-time jobs, and what she does in that job is she pays the bills online, she uses QuickBooks, she sorts mail, and you can see again we've got a picture of her working on the computer. Doesn't that speak volumes? Don't you think that is way better than having it listed just in words? Yeah, for somebody who's got a preconceived idea, oh, intellectual disability, they can't do anything, this is absolutely showing that they can, all right? Again, this is another job that she had, or work experience that she had, and you can see the picture of her and then what she was doing, the kind of things that she was doing. Just telling the employer, hey, Mandy's got skills. And then it's also talking about Mandy and what she does in the community, her interests, just showing that she's fit, she's healthy, she's included. I'm assuming the employer would assume from this that she's got some good communication skills, or she can get along with people. She's involved in a band and in the aquatic centre. And then that she volunteers as well. Gee, Mandy's a busy lady, isn't she? Which is great. Employers want to see this. All right. Oh, and she was voted Volunteer of the Year. Nice little thing. Volunteers at the public library. This is what she does. So it's saying that, hey, she's got some basic reading skills. And then she did an internship, and these are the kinds of things that she did for her internship. And then on the final page, we've got skills and attributes that would benefit your business. So all the other pages are about Mandy, and they wouldn't change unless something changed about her. But then this bit is the bit that we would change for a job. So if she was applying for a certain job, you would put different skills there. And then if she was applying for something different, then you might change the skill set, all right? And that's very much addressing what the business needs are. Okay. Yeah, any questions or comments? Any questions or comments about a visual resume? What do we think of that? Good idea, bad idea? What do we think? Something you'd use? Yeah. So there's something that you might, again, talking to the assignment, if you're manager, would you want to share that information with your staff about visual resumes? Yeah, I do. I certainly do. All right. Okay. Now, transition and work preparation programs. Okay. So this is a framework from a researcher that actually talks about some quality indicators around what sort of things people with disabilities can do and need to do to get work ready. And you can see there's a whole list of things there. Family support is one of them that they've listed. That, interestingly enough, that is very important. If somebody with a disability doesn't have the support of their family, sometimes the job will fall over purely because of that. An interesting thing. Things that they can go to, transition fairs. This is an American article. So what do we have here? We have, we don't call them fairs, but they're things that we can go to, days that you can go to. But there's all sorts of different things there. Then there's different modules. So you can actually do courses around getting work ready. I'm a little bit, I think they're a good idea, but how do I say this? I think they're a good idea and they can teach skills, but it's not until they get into the workplace that some of these skills are cemented and truly learnt. So I think some of these courses that you can do need to be thought of as a little more as an introduction as opposed to the be-all, end-all. Here's some work preparation programs. These are all in America, but we do have Project Search here in Brisbane. In Australia, it's in Brisbane, but we don't have it anywhere else. And again, you can look at those and look at the kind of things that they do there. Oh, okay. Work experience. All right. So work experience is such, I can't tell you how important work experience is. Either a job while they're at school or doing work experience or both is amazing, all right? It definitely helps the person get a full-time job when they leave school. So, what I want to point out here is that work experience, I don't want you to think of work experience as just something that you do during school. Did everybody do work experience during school? Yeah, yes. No, you didn't?
Ours got cancelled.
Yours, because of COVID. Yeah. But generally speaking, they still do that, don't they? Yeah, did in my day, my kids' days. Yeah, still doing it. All right. So, but that's not the only way to have work experience. So you can organise work experience once the person leaves school. Good idea to do it during school, great idea. But they can also do it after school. So quite often what I've done is when I'm working with somebody with a disability, they say they want to work somewhere for whatever reason they've decided they want to work there, and I'm not quite sure if that's going to be a good job match. So I want them to get some experience, so I will go and get them work experience. And then sometimes they'll come home after a day of it and go, yuck, I don't want to do that. That was really different to what I thought. All right. So work experience is very useful for people with disabilities. Now, sometimes that work experience is paid, and I would suggest that you really shouldn't be doing it for more than a week or 2 weeks without it being paid. Because here's a trap for a lot of our people with disabilities. Places will say, yeah, I'll take them on for work experience, and they do, and they extend that work experience out for months or even years, and they never ever get paid. So be very careful about work experience. Put those boundaries in from the get-go. Whenever I'm talking to the employer, I go, this is how much time, this is how many days, this is how many weeks that this is going to be unpaid work experience. If we go beyond that, then you're going to have to consider employing them. So we can do paid work experience, or we can do unpaid work experience, or sometimes it can be volunteering. We can also get them to volunteer, but again, I would be cautious around volunteering because again, people can get used and abused. But there are so many places that do use volunteers on an ongoing basis. And if that's what your person with a disability wants to do, that's fine. But if they want paid employment, don't get them long-term volunteering. Now, it can last for hours. So sometimes I've only done work experience for 2 hours or an hour, and that's it. So that's easy on the employer. Sometimes the employer doesn't want to take somebody on for a whole day or a whole week. And also sometimes my person with a disability won't, will get tired after an hour or 2 hours. So I'll just do it for a short time just for them to have, it's really what we call work discovery. Work experience and work discovery are really the same things, but work discovery is for a much shorter time. All right. Okay, yes, and work discovery, yes. Okay, any questions around work experience or work discovery? Can be in different forms. Sometimes I have somebody I'm working with will have lots of work experiences at different places because they're trying to figure out what they're interested in and what they want to do. I think we all know that jobs are very different once we start doing them, aren't they? Yeah, so it's a good idea to get your person to have some sort of work discovery or work experience. Anything else? Any other comments or questions about work experience? It can be done in different ways. That's the main thing. I don't want you to think it's just 2 weeks at school. You can do it lots of different ways. All right, so career planning programs. So these are programs that a couple of these are now being used in schools. My Futures is being used in schools. Career Voyager is an American, or is it in English? But either way, these are online things, and you fill in a whole lot of questions, and then it spits out what the person might be interested in. So My Futures is something that they're bringing in here in South Australia to all schools, and every single person, every single student will do it, whether you've got a disability or not. I've been involved in a project that has used My Futures and Career Voyager just for people with disabilities, but SA Education System is now changing it and actually including it as part of their curriculum. So like I said, it's online. You go in there, you answer a whole series of questions, and then at the end, it spits out 3 areas that you might like to consider for a future career. They're expensive if you have to buy them, so you've really got to be working at a place that already uses them. So that's what my future looks like. And you can, you click on and it also tells you different information, gives you different stories about different careers. It's quite a nice little system. That's what it looks like. And then this is another one, My Way Employability. It does pretty much the same as my futures. Career Voyage, again, another program, does a similar thing. And you can check them all out. All right. Has anybody used any of those kind of career online things? Has anybody used them? No. A couple of years' time when I'm lecturing, the students will go, yeah, we did it in class. Again, I want to just caution you against those. So if they come out, they usually spit out 3 different areas that you might like a job in. I think everybody's still got to try those jobs. You've still got to go and do some work experience, think about it. They're not always 100% correct, but it does give you some idea. All right. Vocational assessments. Now, I am so not a fan of vocational assessments, but I've been told that I have to put vocational assessments in, so I have. All right. So there's lots of vocational assessments that exist, and I've just given you just a sample of a few there for you. So a vocational assessment is around somebody in particular. Vocational assessments can be used for people with and without disability. I have an issue with them for people with disabilities because what I find is often it will give you a list of what you can't do, not what you can do. And I come from a strength as a DE, I come from a strength-based way of thinking, and I would rather know what my person with a disability can do rather than what they can't do. So I'm a little bit wary of vocational assessments. They'll often, you can see here there's one for behaviour, there's one for work habits and attitudes, showing up on time, staying on task. Now look, you can fill that all in and do that assessment, and they might not have that skill yet, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to have that skill in the future. So I'm really not sure what the point of it is. Anyway, that's what they are. You can use them to highlight what skills you need to work on for your person with a disability. You can certainly use them for that, but I think it's kind of obvious. If they have work experience, it comes very quickly to the fore what they need to learn. All right, you don't have to do an assessment for that. You just need to observe and you need to get feedback from the employer, and you'll find out what they can't do, that's for sure. Yes, so this is my point. Doesn't do doesn't equal can't do. People should be treated as if they are capable of change, all right? And so we can teach these skills and they can learn these skills, and so an assessment can be quite negative in my view. There we go. Now, this is the kind of system that I prefer to use as opposed to doing a workplace assessment. I would prefer to place and train them. So what we used to do traditionally, many years ago, even before my time, we used to train people and then place them in a job, all right? There's lots of issues with that because there's only so much we can train for. I'm sure you all know once you get into a job, there's a whole lot of skills in the job that you didn't realise that you needed. And also sometimes people will be always in that training stage. People with disabilities run that risk of, oh, they're not ready yet. Somebody's saying they're not ready yet, they don't have the skills yet. But if we actually put them into the job, they learn the skills and they do it. So what we used to do was train and then place, but it meant that people were perpetually in training centres, which is what happens in England today as we speak. They have big training centres and people don't move on from them. They stay in the training centres for nearly their whole lives. They never actually graduate from the training centre and never get a job. I actually say that you need to place and then train. So we get them a job and we train them while they're in the job. That makes more sense to me, and I think it works way, way, way better. All right, so the whole idea is we get them a job that they like, that the employer's happy to have them there, and then we provide them with the supports and the training while they're in the job. Any questions about that? Any questions about, yes? Oh no, just,
Sorry.
it's okay. Anybody got any questions about that? Anybody want to disagree with me? Because you can. It's absolutely fine. Can you see the importance of getting somebody into a job and then training them, as opposed to always leaving them in training centres? Yeah. Lots of people, in England, I couldn't believe it when I was over there. I was just shocked. That's exactly what happens. Yeah, they just stay in these training centres. So in England, what they did was they closed their ADEs. They weren't called ADEs, but their sheltered employment. They closed their sheltered employment. Yay, that's great. That looks fantastic. It looks like they're doing a better job than Australia. Australia, we haven't closed our ADEs yet. But what they did was they started these training centres, and then everybody just is in the training centres perpetually. They don't actually go and get an open employment job. So have they achieved anything? I don't know that they have. I'll be honest. All right, disclosure. This is an important point. And again, it's a very personal one. So I'm going to give you a couple of resources. So you can download either of these. So identifying as a person with a disability in the workplace. This is something that the person with the disability needs to make the decision clearly whether they're going to disclose whether they have a disability or not. But they will often ask us for our advice, so you need to have an opinion on this. All right? So you could read this document or you can read this document, and it gives you some ideas around whether people should disclose whether they have a disability or not. Now, I want you to turn to the person next to you, and I want you to think about, come up with some reasons on why somebody with a disability would disclose that they have a disability, and then I want you to come up with one reason why you would disclose it and one reason why you wouldn't disclose it. All right? Discuss that with the person next to you. All right, just ask externals. Okay, there's a lull. What are we thinking, guys? What reason would you advise somebody with a disability to disclose? Or why would they want to disclose?
They might have a health condition that needs monitoring.
Yes, good. Might have a health condition that needs monitoring. Yep. Anybody? Anything else? Yeah. Be able to access supports. Absolutely. Anything else that anyone had? No? Okay. Reasons why they wouldn't disclose.
So that an employer or anyone doesn't make an assumption about them.
Yeah. Yeah, we're trying to avoid the stereotypes and the assumptions around people with disabilities. Absolutely. Anything else? I suppose part of that assumption is around what they can and can't do as well. Yeah. And that's really basically when they've interviewed people with disabilities and done some research into this, everything falls into those two main categories. One is that they want the support, or the other one is they want to avoid that bias, that stereotyping. So, yeah, like I said, it's entirely up to the person with a disability. There are stories around once people do disclose that it works very well for them and goes in their favour, and there were equally stories around it hasn't worked well and I wish I hadn't disclosed. So it's a tricky one because I think it depends on the person. Sometimes it depends on the disability as well. Some people have hidden disabilities. I think that's a slightly different thing or gets a slightly different reaction than somebody who may obviously have a disability, and so once they disclose it, then it seems to give people permission to ask questions and offer support more readily. So yeah, it's very much depends on the workplace and the individual, and also their type of disability as well. So I encourage you to read some of those great resources that I've given you there, and to think about very carefully around what sort of information and advice you would give to somebody with a disability about disclosing whether they do have a disability. All right. Any questions or comments around that? Yes, Yvonne's put it's very individual. It is very individual. Yep, absolutely. That prejudice, that's what they're most scared of. Okay, excellent. We're nearly done, guys. One little last section for you. So I've just put some resources up for you. So this is Me Plus More. So this is actually a lady with an intellectual disability who realised that there wasn't supports for people with an intellectual disability around getting a job, and she started her own business. So what a great resource she's providing. So there's that resource for you. Okay. And then of course I've got other resources throughout the rest of the topic and up on Flow for you as well. I've got resources throughout the PowerPoint, and then throughout, then I've got some extra ones up on Flow for you in the workbook. So that is it. Any questions? Any comments about today? Let's go back to the assessment. So what skills and experiences would be useful for a job seeker with disability? Hopefully we've answered that one for you. And what pre-employment knowledge would be useful for a job consultant when supporting somebody with a disability? Again, each one of those that I've discussed today falls into one of those two categories there for you. So I've got the answer for you. Now you've just got to do a little more reading and write it up. Okay, you don't have to mention everything that I've mentioned today. You might like to focus on only just a few of them and give a little more detail, or you might like to mention a lot of them and give less detail. Entirely up to you in your assignment. All right. Any questions or comments? We are done. That is week 7. Enjoy tomorrow. And then it's the weekend again. It's a funny week, isn't it? With Tuesday, Anzac Day holiday. Thanks, externals, for being on chat. Thank you.